today, I recalled an event in Sutton about 7 years ago. It was a meeting with a, if you can picture a table set out in a big square in the centre of the room, and sitting on two sides of the square were people like me, managers from across the council and from health organisations in the borough. And on the other two sides of the square were parents of disabled children who lived in the borough. And the reason for us spending the morning together was that we had asked, in fact we'd asked Contact a Family to run some focus groups with parents of disabled children to find out what they could tell us about where services were working well and where they weren't working well. And the point of this meeting really was to get the headline feedback from some of the parents who'd taken part in those focus groups. Although the tone of the meeting was very calm and measured, and although there were some nuggets of really good feedback amongst what was said, overall the effect of what we were told was really quite devastating. And at various points throughout the morning you could practically hear the sound of jaws dropping as my colleagues realised the realities of life for families bringing up disabled children in the borough, and really realised that the way the services had been working was not good enough. And I don't think any of us left that room that morning thinking that do nothing was a realistic option. Now, I won't go into the details of that, but what I will do is fast forward to now, to 2008. We certainly haven't fixed all the problems that there were then in the borough, and we found some new ones. And if I did try to tell you that we had fixed some problems, I can see a potential heckler in the back row who will tell you different. But I think it is fair to say that we've come a very, very long way, and that we are still making good progress. The driving force for change has been the Sutton Disability Partnership for Children and Young People. And as I see it, there are two key things that make this partnership a bit special and which contribute to its effectiveness. I mean, you can see in what sense it's a partnership. It's a partnership between all those groups and interests. And I think the two things that make it work and have made it effective, one of them is that it's in some ways a very high-level group. It has two councillors on the group, one of whom is the lead councillor for children's services in the borough. Its members from the statutory sector, from the council, include the Director of Children's Services. There are assistant directors there who are responsible for SEN, for social services and for child health in the borough. All of that means that there's really quite a lot of top brass meeting together 6 times a year to look just at disabled children's issues. The other reason why I think it's been quite an effective partnership is because of the parent participation and the way that works. There is significant parent participation in this group. There are 6 places on the partnership board for parents of disabled children. They're not just there representing themselves. The way we work it in the borough, and I'm sure it's the case I'm sure it's the same in lots of places, is that the Parents' Forum is really quite central to how this works. All parents of disabled children in the borough are potentially eligible to take part in the Parents' Forum. In practice, of course, nothing like that when you come to meetings, but you wouldn't expect them to, really. The important thing is that they can if they choose to. And the Parents' Forum chooses the representatives who come to the board meetings. So that means that when these senior managers are hearing parents talk about their issues, they know that they're not just talking about their own personal issues, they're talking on behalf of all the parents of disabled children in the borough. And I think those two things together have helped to give the partnership board some teeth. I wouldn't say necessarily that the way we've got things set up in Sutton is right for every area, but what I would say is that if every area could have that combination of senior people and people who use services meeting together regularly, then I think that things would move fast in most places. It isn't just the Parents' Forum that we use to get views, and I think increasingly I've come to realise that it's important that there's a range of methods to get views and to feed views and ideas into decision making. And I've put on here some of the other things that we do. We have open meetings from time to time where we invite anybody who wants to come along to have a dialogue with us. And we have made quite a lot of use of sort of surveys and questionnaires, particularly about specific issues, where we want to find out how well a particular service is working, or what we want to do about a particular issue. Then we found that quite useful. So I'd say a range of methods is important. It's pretty obvious, I think, why parents would welcome parent participation, but you might be asking, what's in it for the council and the PCT to go to all this bother? Well, I think, it's an important question, and I think it's important to be clear why there are benefits for the authorities as well as for the service users in this. And I put some of them up here. To start with, if you have a good dialogue with your service users, you have a better understanding of their needs. You also have a very good understanding of how your services work, and it's amazing how often we find what a difference there is between what we put on paper about our services and what actually happens at the coalface, if you like, when at the point of delivery. And that better information, of course, leads into better decisions and more effective services. And more effective also means more cost-effective. Now, I wouldn't say that parent participation is a cost-saving exercise, I wouldn't claim that, but I would say that it's amazing how often parents can come up with ideas for improving efficiency and cutting out waste, because they can spot things that we can't spot about the way services are delivered. Constraints and pressures are better understood. Things can look very simple when you don't get the full picture. And I think from the sort of local authority point of view, if we, where we get a chance to, explain the budget constraints or explain the knock-on effects of doing X, then there's a better understanding all round about what the issues are. Plans and decisions have greater credibility. It's one thing for officers like myself to come up with a wonderful strategy, but if that strategy is actually rooted in what the users of those services are saying, then it has much greater clout, much greater credibility. The two things at the bottom may not be immediately obvious. Makes health and education and social services work together. Well, in the bad old days, years ago, there used to be quite a lot of problems in Sutton about health and education and social services working well together. And we used to get some very sad cases, really, where we play pass the parcel with difficult decisions, maybe difficult funding decisions or things that every manager thought was somebody else's responsibility. Everyone recognised it needed dealing with, but no one was taking responsibility for it. Those managers now have to turn up to this board meeting every 2 months or so and face the people who were affected by their games of pass the parcel. And that's a very good motivator for sorting out the differences before it gets raised at board level. Think about The Apprentice. Think about not having one Alan Sugar facing you, but 6 of them saying, "What on earth are you playing at?" It has that sort of effect, and I think that's made a huge difference, really. The other thing is, sorry.
Can you engage housing in there?
We have engaged housing, and we've done some work on housing. And housing, actually, housing is one of the examples where knowing that an issue was brewing was a motivator to getting something sorted out before it actually came to our board. We knew that an issue was brewing. We alerted our colleagues in housing that there was an issue brewing, and it brought them to the table. And this is particularly about access to adapted housing or adaptable housing for children with physical disabilities, and we've got a much faster, more streamlined route now for those families. And that is one of those issues where it didn't have to come to the board. The fact that it would have done if we hadn't sorted it helped us sort